Welcome to the lABLEd podcast, a show about disability, illness and difference. I'm Lucy.
And I'm Alice. And that's Lola.
Kaleidoscope identity, and this is who I'm meant to be. I'm just labelled me. I'm just labelled me.
Hi guys! Don't forget, in this episode, I might swear, Lucy might cry, and you can check out details of the trigger warnings on our website.
Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new episode of the lABLEd podcast. This week we have been focusing on autism, World Autism Awareness Week. So we've been speaking to lots of people who have autism and their experiences of it. Today we've got Graham Rodgers with us. Hello Graham.
Hello peeps.
Hello, how are you? Peeps,
fine,
very
thanks.
very casual. How are you, Graham? All right?
I'm feeling good, thanks. How are you?
Good. I'm very well, thank you. Would you like to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, please?
Oh goodness. I had a diagnosis on the autism spectrum age 20 after a mental breakdown in college, and since then I've become a sort of self-taught advocate about mental illness, disability, vulnerable adults, things like that.
Wow, that's interesting. I know that there's quite often a lot of crossover between people with ASD and mental illness. Do you mind sort of talking a little bit about your experience of that, or sort of your knowledge of that across the autistic community?
Oh goodness, that's the weird thing about history, isn't it? It never happens in the right order. So, like I said, I was diagnosed with it after having a really bad mental breakdown in college. I really struggled. I was anxious all the time. I was stressed. I felt like I didn't belong to people, like I was sort of invisible, and it was actually my counsellor in college who suggested I might have this condition I'd never even heard of before. But as I did more research into it, I started to feel, that it was something. So, I'd never even heard of Asperger's at the time, so it was quite a relatively new thing. Of course, now it's probably more talked about nowadays, and
So, after the counsellor had said to you at college, I think you might have this condition. I presume it was lots of medical appointments, and things like that. Did it feel like a bit of a relief, like you could, like an understanding of, oh, now I've got this label almost. I kind of know what it is. That kind of mindset.
Actually, it wasn't. Actually, you said many medical appointments. It actually wasn't really like that. I just sort of took a year out from college, and took some time to relax and whatnot. Tried getting a job, But I think after a while, I sort of realised, I couldn't hide it anymore. I sort of felt myself slipping back into old habits, things like that. And I just said to my parents, "Look, I think I have this condition that I know a lot about, and I'd like to go to see a doctor about it." So, all the clues were there. They really were. My mum kept all the my old school reports, and so we took them to our specialist when we saw her, and she spotted all the signs, things like hand flapping, and adherence to the rules, and all the little things that are there, but probably went over other people's head. But I spent like an hour in the sessions just talking about things and looking at the school reports, and after an hour she said, "Yep, you definitely got it." So in a way I was sort of relieved, because because some people fight for years to get a diagnosis, but I had all the evidence I pretty much needed, really.
That's the thing. I think, Alice, I don't know about you, but I certainly think, the thought of having to go through a new diagnosis, it always seems to me, or I think it is, a long road and a fight, because I've heard so many stories about people, you know, having to fight for diagnosis and things. And then you hear Graham's sort of story where it's like after an hour, yeah, you've definitely got it. It's
I think it's particularly difficult because a lot of people with autism and autism related traits get misdiagnosed with mental illnesses and, you know, anxiety and things like that, because the two quite often go hand in hand, where you know, if you have difficulty interpreting social cues and things like that, then you're probably quite anxious when you're in big groups. But it's not, you know, that anxiety isn't a mental illness sort of anxiety. That anxiety is linked to something else. So I think that's something that happens quite a lot for people with autism.
Yeah, I mean, I knew it was something, but yeah, you know, for a while I thought maybe I was bipolar because I had these really bad mood swings, but then I realised these bad mood swings, they were just a product of the environment I was in at the time and things like that.
Graham, you've spoken about when you were sort of first diagnosed with autism. How did your group of friends that you were surrounded with at the time take the news that Graham's got the diagnosis of autism, and how did that affect your mental health? I know that you've taken you've sort of looked at your life and made it a better environment for you. How did it affect your mental health? You know, how did your friends react to your diagnosis?
Well, like I said, I was 20 when I was diagnosed, so that's the age when your friends, or well, that's kind of debatable, your so-called friends, you know, just sort of up and leave you. And I didn't really have a real group of friends outside of college, so yeah, it's like, I didn't really have any friends by the time I had a diagnosis, because so much things went down, and in some ways it was sad because I knew I had to move on with my life and, you know, cut certain fat out my life, you know. And at the same time, it was like an opportunity to make new friends and things like that. But that's the trouble. That's the trouble with social isolation. You know, where do you begin? It's like, you know, I mean, there's barely any support groups anymore, and they're few and far between. They might be in the city, but that's quite a travel. So, yeah, so between the ages of 20 and 25, I was practically alone, really. Yeah, I mean, people with autism, they're like, you know, square pegs and other people are round holes, and the more you try and put the square peg into a round hole, you're just going to do more damage to the peg. So, yeah, I think after a while I sort of realised I was never going to fit into anyone's pigeonhole. It was that time in life where I had to sort of go out and just do a lot of soul searching and decide, you know, what's right for me as an individual, rather than being something other people probably wanted me to be, because the sad truth is it just wasn't going to work out that way.
So alongside sort of the treatment from medical professionals, was there like one activity? I mean, we've spoken to quite a few people with autism for this week in particular, and they say that finding activities to sort of help them express themselves. So Louise, for instance, she's got her music, and her sister Gemma is into running. Is there anything that you sort of do in your spare time that sort of helps with the sort of the anxiety that autism causes?
Yeah, I've always been a very creative person. I do things like drawing, sketching, creative writing, those things. When I was diagnosed, my specialist, she saw my school reports that I was quite the artist, and she challenged me to, apparently she collected like drawings from patients and things. So she challenged me to draw something quite specific, which was the origin of Batman. So I went away and I did this like noir black and white sketches of Bruce Wayne's parents being gunned down. Pretty morbid, but
wow,
that's what it is. And Yeah, and she kept those. So.
Oh, that sounds great. I would have loved to have seen those. I mean, as you said, quite dark, but no, it sounds great.
Yeah, well, Batman's my favourite character anyway. So yeah.
So Graham, I know you know Louise Steele, who's been a former guest on our podcast. Can you tell us a bit about how you know her?
About a year after we started, I started getting emails off of her. She was really interested in doing something about Autism Awareness Week, so she started contacting me, and so I invited her down, and met her, and we talked about the group and what we did, get some photos, and well, at first I thought it was going to be one of these one-off things, but a few weeks later she contacted me on Instagram, and she told me that she herself had got a diagnosis of being on the spectrum. So and based on what I understand from your podcast, I was probably one of the first people she actually told about. So she told me she and her twin sister Gemma Steele, the GB athlete, also had a diagnosis as well. So about a year after that, I got to meet Gemma Steele as well. They both came to our workshop, so we had a bit of a celebrity guest that year, so, which was quite nice,
Gemma had never really spoken about her autism diagnosis, and I just thought it was such a great thing for her to do, to be so open and honest about her experiences. I mean, she knows Alice, but she'd never met me before, and I think it was great feedback for us, Alice, wasn't it, when she said it just felt like she was sat talking to her mates, really. So a great little session we had with her, and I was just in awe. In fact, I'm always in awe of the people that come on our podcast and are so open about their lives and willing to talk about their conditions or disabilities. I just think it's absolutely brilliant, because they're doing a vital thing, really.
Well, and I think one of the things that's really cool about kind of Gemma and Louise's stories is how much they accomplished before they got their diagnoses.
Exactly. I remember when Gemma came to our workshop, she came in and she brought all her medals that she'd won from various marathons and races over the years, and I thought, this is incredible stuff. It really is.
Yeah.
And did you find that the group got a lot out of Gemma's visit?
I think they did. They were very interested, and they listened with glee. And Gemma's, from what I heard on the podcast, Gemma's a real social butterfly. So she was talking with everyone, joking with everyone, taking part. So she was. I mean, she's always welcome back, of course. I mean, she was a real, really brightened the day.
I think what I'm learning about through this autism awareness, these conversations we've had, is the fact that I think autism, it sort of makes you more. It can make you more focused on things you really enjoy, and so you become like an expert in your chosen sort of hobby or thing you really like, and you can become really, really good at it. And to me, that isn't a negative at all. If you're really good at something, it's almost like a booster, isn't it, really, for interests and hobbies, I think.
I think they say you need to do something for 100 hours to become, really good at it. And I think that most sort of neurotypical people just find that life and things like that gets distracting. Whereas I think because people with autism quite often do have that ability to just focus on specific things. And I think, it works both ways, because it means that there are some people who struggle with sort of hypersensitivity to certain things. But I think if you're able to tap into that, then it is a really good kind of source of creativity and sort of a drive, it's a really strong driver. Do you find, you said that you had kind of a mental breakdown at college. Do you find that there are still elements of struggling with anxiety in terms of sort of your mental health that you still find difficult to deal with? Or do you feel, as though your things like anxiety that you've felt in the past, do you feel like you can relate those more to your autism? Or do you feel like the two are very separate?
It depends. I mean, everyone has their role. They have their role to play. I think. I mean, you could. It really breaks my heart when I hear these stories about autistic people who grew up in very dysfunctional homes. Maybe the parents were very understanding, maybe weren't very understanding, and things weren't healthy as they were, and as a result, they attract and wanted attention, and they're led astray easy, and they get involved in things like crime and things like that. Unfortunately, I think autistic people really benefit from more, of a non-toxic environment. You get what I mean? Because I used to be surrounded by quite negative people, things, quite bitchy, quite gossipy, and really negative. To hear them talk, it's like it's like they want you. Yeah, I mean, I really benefit more from being surrounded by more positive people. I mean, okay, things are bad, but if you look at the glass half empty kind of thing, but but at the same time, the glass could still be half full, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think everybody just thrives, don't they, when they are in a kinder environment, when people are nice to one another and everybody is respected. I think people just flourish. To be honest, I don't think that is anything sort of. That's not a new idea. I think if everybody was a little bit kinder, the world would be a lot nicer place, really.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big follower of the whole "be kind" mantra, that kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, back in college, I met all kinds of people, and I mean, I'm not saying they were all bad, but some were pretty toxic to be around. And lots of big egos, and I can't live my life with that kind of BS. I mean, no one can really. You know what I mean?
No.
I think it really, it sounds like you made a real conscious effort to put yourself and your mental and emotional well-being first. And I think that a lot of people, neurodiverse or atypical, all find that, lots of people find that really difficult, whether you're neurodiverse or not. And so I think it's great to hear that you've done that. And I think it's really interesting to hear that, because I think one of the things that a lot of people think about people with autism, and that is that kind of representation of people with autism, is that inability to understand emotions, even their own emotions. And, you've clearly been able to identify what is the right choice for you. And your emotional and mental well-being. And as I say, that's hard for people without neurodiversity.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, growing up, I was like Casper the Friendly Ghost, really. I always wanted friends, but there was always this, barrier in front of me, preventing me from establishing friendships, maintaining friendships, things like that. And I think as I got older, I sort of realised, it's all right to want friends. Everyone wants to be, included, socially included. I'm a big advocate of social inclusion, that kind of thing. And unfortunately, you're not going to get that with everyone. Some people just, so up themselves that it's never going to work. So you just move on, really.
I think I can speak from having a visible disability, so being in a wheelchair, that I know that I make friends. I can make friends, but there are people out there in this world that will never really want to be my friend. They just are hell-bent in misunderstanding me. They've got their own stereotypical view of what it's like to have a friend in a wheelchair, and I'm quite happy with the small group of friends I've got. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather have a small group of friends than a large group of people around me who pretend to be my friend.
Like 10 million followers on Instagram and things like that,
Yeah, exactly.
The numbers game now, hasn't it? So
yeah.
I'm not an antisocial person. Far from it. I still believed in things like love and being kind, things like that. And unfortunately, some people just don't share that. They'd rather be that they intentionally go out to be antisocial and get out of mood.
No.
I think it comes from being damaged and unloved oneself, usually, sadly.
I was just going to say what Alice just said about empty vessels making the loudest noise. I mean, you can pretend to be happy and all that, but based on what I know now about people, I can pretty much spot a hypocrite from a mile away. So I know all the signs because I've been there myself.
So you said that you consider yourself quite you said you don't consider yourself to be antisocial, and you said right at the beginning of the show that you do a lot of work with vulnerable adults and adults with autism. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and sort of the work that you do?
About 5 years before lockdown happened and all of that, I was approaching the age of 30 and not really doing much. And the usual self-help group that was in the area was shutting down because not many people were interested.
Was that a autism specific self-help group or?
It was. It was set up by a late someone who's died since.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was I saying there? Okay. Yeah, like I said, it was shutting down. There wasn't really anything in the area, and me and my friends, like two good friends, we thought, why don't we set up and do something on our own, So I sort of took charge of the whole thing because I probably had more experience in business before we came to college and all that. So we set up our little group with the help of another group who could give us all the resources and actually help us from day one to apply for funding and things like that, which is good because I agree with you, you struggle with things like paperwork as it is, but they really took us under our wing and saw an opportunity to do a co-production, and we just took it from there. And within a year, we had our own bank account, and we were starting to do some stuff, and it just grew and grew and grew.
That's amazing.
Yeah, the group's called the Swollen Coast Burgess Society, but I sort of came up with that name because I wanted the abbreviation to be rather catchy, SAS. That one. So it's worked. So
Well, we can if you've got a website, we can link all that on our website for you guys if you want. But that's amazing. So, I mean, do you find sort of like it gives you a bit of a purpose, sort of supporting and helping other people that have got autism in that group situation? Is it something that you really enjoy doing because you can sort of give back a little bit?
It works on many different levels. I mean, we were getting people to come in, do some artwork, have a cup of tea, bit of a chat, make some connections, and when you're on the board, which is what me and my friends are, you also get the opportunity to do some training and learn more business skills and things like that. I remember at one point we did some media awareness training up in Leicester, which was a very interesting day. So,
and do you think that your experiences of mental illness and things like that, do you think that that's been helpful with your being able to provide support for other people with autism, who you're the people who you're meeting? Because I imagine, particularly for people who are having sort of it's unexpected diagnoses or long sought diagnoses, it's quite an emotional roller coaster, really.
It can be. Well, you still get your good days and your bad days, and it's like with the group. It's a nice little space. Not too many people, and there's a little designated quiet room off the end that anyone can use at any one time. So yeah, and we promote things like respect and things like that.
I think what's great about support groups that are set up by the people they're aimed at is that there is a deeper understanding of not just the difficulties, but also what you can do within that group to help support the people it's aimed at in the best possible way, isn't it? Really, it's that kind of knowing exactly. You've managed, Graham, to identify a problem, or seeing that there's something lacking in society, and thought, well, if we could set up a group that does X, Y, Z, it'd be really beneficial. And I think they're the groups and the organisations that really work, because you've got understanding right from the grassroots up, haven't you? Really, you're not sort of relying on people who don't understand or know a little bit and are sort of fudging their way through. You've got that basis of understanding to build a great foundation on, and I think it's fantastic, really.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it a support group. I wouldn't personally. I think support group has a bit of a negative connotation, like like alcoholics and druggies and things like that.
Yeah.
And I just thought to myself, we're part of the same society. I mean, okay, maybe different, but we're as much as part of society as any other label you can think of. So really, it was more about celebrating difference than anything else. We've had some diversity awareness training as well with the Caribbean community, and they were really supportive of the whole project. And that's like I said, it's all about inclusion at the end of it.
And I think, sort of going back to what Lucy was saying, something that you see a lot in terms of support groups or activity groups, or even kind of therapeutic services like counselling, is professionals coming along and advising and saying, well, I mean, in my sort of day job, I work in social care, and I had a conversation with somebody quite recently who said that they'd been told by a social worker how to set up their counselling office so that it was suitable for an autistic client. And I sort of said, well, have you actually spoken to the client about what is going to be best for them? Because the social worker will probably have a list of these are common sensory things that, even if it's a social worker who has a specialism in, learning difficulties or neurodiversities, everybody's individual experience is different. And so just kind of going actually to the people you're working with and talking to them directly, that's where you get kind of the most genuine information. And I think, that's what Lucy was saying about when these groups are set up by the people who have that lived experience, it really does make a difference, because you're just more aware not only of the things that work for you, but you probably know other people and have friends who have similar but different experiences. So you're more able to go, well, let's look at what works for everybody, rather than let's look at this tick box list of things.
And also, I think it helps the people that are using the service, if they know that the people who are running it are experienced and know what they're talking about, it makes them feel understood, and it makes them feel comfortable, and it makes them feel respected. It's rather than talking down to, you're just talking to. You're not dictating, we're going to do this today because I've heard that's what autistic people like to do, or I've heard that's what people in wheelchairs like to do. It's the whole making bird boxes situation. So a lot of, when you go to day centres for people with disabilities, for some reason they seem to think that we like making bird boxes, because they will do that till we're blue in the face, and it's just boring. So you get that understanding of, instead of I've heard people like to do, it's more of a what would you like to do? What activity suits you best? Because it's like putting a football match on and say, we're going to play football today. Well, I can't kick a ball, so I'll just, what do I do? Do I just sit sorting the socks out. What do I do? Kind of thing. I just think it's a great way of setting up a group, really, and to have people on the board who, have the same condition as the people you're supporting is another great way of doing it. It's all about equality and diversity, really, isn't it? And not just being, the able-bodied person who goes, yes, I know best.
Yeah. Some people are just patronising and all of that, but some of the people who come to our group, they don't have a diagnosis on the spectrum, but they still suffer from things like anxiety and depression and things we can all relate to. So we're quite inclusive. We don't really turn anyone away. We let people come and go as we please. So yeah.
And is that for people who are newly diagnosed or have been have had a diagnosis for a long time, or is it for everybody really?
It's for everyone really. We don't really ask questions. We just advertise, and if people want to come, they come. And this was before the lockdown happened, so we haven't really done anything since. Oh, actually, I was recently approached by someone online about doing some consultation for the local council and the Citizens Advice Bureau about this new training course being launched in Autism Awareness Week. So basically they sent me like a PowerPoint presentation kind of thing, so I had to look through that. So I sort of scanned the whole thing, made notes about things about how layout can help people take in information and what bits of information to include, and ended up leaving about 125 comments on it. In a constructive way. I mean, it was a good presentation. It sort of reminded me about things I'd long forgotten about, my needs and what the symptoms were, I've been doing that for a while, so it's good that.
Do you find it quite encouraging, Graham, and do you quite like it when people come and ask you for help with things to do with autism? Is it something that you enjoy and sort of relish in?
I think it's nice when people come to you for advice rather than the other way around, because we have so much to offer, we really do, but most people just can't see it really. So that's probably part of the reason why I set up the group, really, become sort of an entrepreneur, that kind of thing. Just to show I was capable of doing something, and we've done some pretty impressive things in our time. One of the first things we did was actually publish a coffee table book with all our artwork and bits of writing in and things like that. So there's a product there that's still selling well and still gets attention. You bring it up at meetings. It's like, okay, this is what we're capable of, and it really shows what we're capable of.
Yeah, that's good. I think it's fantastic. I really do.
I think that it's just about looking past that diagnosis, and I think that's one of the really nice things about you were saying that you have people who attend your group who have mental health difficulties and depression and anxiety, but don't necessarily have a autism diagnosis. You're not checking those certificates at the door. You're saying, if you need a place where you need to express yourself in a way that is perhaps different from how the majority of society prefer to express themselves, and maybe somewhere quiet where people will be understanding and open, it's really nice to hear, because I don't think you get a lot of that. I think one of the things that's really difficult with a lot of government and local authority commissioned services is that you have to have that diagnosis and you have to fit into a very specific box, because otherwise they won't place you. And so having something that's more open, it is just more inclusive, and it stops labeling people, and it stops making that it stops othering people, stops people go, well, that's a group for autistic people, look at those autistic people, and says, well, this is a group for people who want to sit quietly and express themselves through drawing and have a cup of tea and just chat to somebody.
Yeah, everyone loves it. Everyone's done something. We've done a lot of photography things with like professional cameras, and all of them have been displayed at the local museum on several different occasions, and yeah, everyone's loved it every time.
You said that you've got some other big names coming up that you're going to be working with in your group, Graham. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you've got planned?
Yeah, just before lockdown started, we started working with Diana Ali. She's you probably best know her from the BBC Big Painting Challenge. She's done a lot of museum curation over the years, and yeah, we were working with her, and we were hoping to do yet another exhibition and things like that. But unfortunately, that's all on hiatus at the moment because of the pandemic. But I'm hoping after this pandemic's over, we get back into it because she's a really noteworthy person to work with and very pleasant too. So yeah.
Do you find that, you know, when you come up with these ideas, it's quite easy to get the disabled community involved or the autistic community involved in your ideas? You know, do you find it quite easy to gather up enthusiasm to carry it forward?
Well, the group's been going for about over 5 years in one incarnation or another. I mean, each one's similar, but pretty distinctly different in its own way. But yeah, people keep coming back. New people keep turning up, and yeah, word of mouth gets around, and everyone just enjoys it, really.
I think that's what we found with the podcast, Alice. When we started, we were thinking, oh, we're going to really struggle to find people that want to sort of help out and come on and do the show. You know, help us create something and get support behind it. But actually, you know, when we were looking for our historian Daisy, and we sort of said, do you want to like come and join the team as part of our, you know, the people that are actually on the show, and sort of told her about her idea, she just went, yeah. And the amount of people that turn around and go, yeah, I'll help you, kind of thing. Or it's quite encouraging, really, that I think that we've managed to get so much support so quickly as well.
Well, I think support in our local area has gotten better, and there was going to be something launched for Autism Wellness Week 2020, but unfortunately with the pandemic that suddenly happened, it changed everything. But no, now we have this thing called the Derbyshire Autism Alliance, which is basically, you know, these Zoom meetings where quite a lot of people turn up actually and discuss various topics and things like that, and that's going really, really well. And and they're planning on launching some things this year, so things like website databases of services and things like that. So I think support is getting better and bigger, if you get what I mean.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's really encouraging to hear, and I think that's been one of the things that's perhaps come out of the pandemic, is that we've seen where the gaps in support and sort of provision is, and actually how flexible people can be with how they provide support to reach more people. I think it's, as much as the pandemic has been really difficult, it's really also important to look at the good things that have come out of it.
Yeah, I mean, before the pandemic, I was sort of worried about, things like, bullying and hate crime, things like that, and I think after the lockdown happened, I think it was only then people started to take things like social isolation, social exclusion, things like that more seriously, because before the pandemic, everyone just thought social isolation was kind of an elderly thing, but it can affect you at any time in life, really. In fact, I remember I once saw a documentary, and it said that people in their 20s were actually more likely to be socially isolated than the elderly, because that's a great transitional period. Your friends might be moving away, getting married, going to uni, all these things, and you're just sort of left behind, really. I mean, I experienced that. I definitely did, because my early 20s, I was still coming to terms with my diagnosis and just saving money in whatever way I could. And yeah, I mean, I didn't even know I could get a free bus pass until I was like just after I set up the group, really. So yeah, and that's another thing. I mean, you get a diagnosis and suddenly, but you're not aware of what help there is out there for you, what benefits and things like that. So
I think that what needs to happen is really when you get a diagnosis of any sort, I think really in an ideal world, what you would then do is say, right, you've got this diagnosis, and now we're going to put you with a group of people who are like at the adult end of your diagnosis, so you can see, what is either ahead or, it doesn't all have to be negative, and oh, isn't disability such a terrible thing? I think it would be such a helpful thing to have that, especially for like parents of newborn children and things like that. It would be to be able to have something that you go, okay, well, my child's got such and such, but it doesn't mean it's like that there's no future, because I think that's what some people get frightened of.
Well, and I think, that goes back quite nicely to what we were saying earlier in the show about how proud you are and should be of what you've achieved with your group, Graham, because, you reflect back on the position that you were in. You just said when you first got your diagnosis, you were very socially isolated. You were struggling with money. You were, and to now be in a position where you're like, well, I have founded this group that supports people and promotes, self-advocacy and encourages people to express themselves. If you'd been able to see that at 20 when you got your diagnosis, do you think that would have made it easier for you to kind of come to terms with it? Do you think you would have felt more positive about it?
Yeah, I think it would have. I mean, we're all different versions of ourselves throughout life, better or for worse. But yeah, I think of my younger self, if I could go back in time and talk to my 20-year-old self now, I'd probably tell him, everything's going to be okay. You'll hold down a job, you'll get a girlfriend, do these amazing opportunities, things like that. I think it would have made my younger self feel better. Because 20, that's like the age where you're sort of still finding yourself. You want to explore the world, and I sort of learned the hard way that the world was sort of restricted for people. Well, I say people like me, but that might be offensive. But the underdog.
I think it's that kind of thing of being underestimated, isn't it? When you're different in any way, shape, or form, people have a tendency to underestimate you, and so therefore your fight to get to the top is almost harder because you're underestimated. You must look back at the things that this group have managed to achieve, Graham, and think, I'm really proud of that.
Oh, I'm too humble for my own good. Well, I think it was only when lockdown happened that I started to look back and think, I actually really missed doing all this. I mean, it wasn't easy, and some days you didn't want to turn up at all, but I kept to it, and kept at it, and it's it's given me more opportunities to do things like doing this consultation thing for the local council and the citizens' advice. So time was I could go into them, but now they're coming to me. So.
Yeah, you see, it's something to be massively proud of. And I think it's only in situations like this, when you're telling other people who don't know anything about your group, and you have to reflect on what you've done and what you've managed to achieve, that you go, actually, that probably is something to be very proud of.
How have you been managing, your mental health and have you been giving yourself that space to sort of express yourself creatively and stuff during lockdown and during the pandemic? Because I know a lot of people have obviously been very isolated, and you've not been able to run your group. Have you been doing any online sessions? I can understand online sessions might not necessarily be the most suitable and accessible for people who have, verbal communication difficulties.
Yeah, my creative writing group, they moved online, and it's actually quite a lot easier than travelling, because sometimes travelling is not very easy. And yeah, they had set up an online thing where you upload your writing, they give comments back on it, constructive comments, kind of similar to what I've done with this slideshow I mentioned. And yeah, it's strange really, because before lockdown I sent something off to Writing East Midlands for the hope to be offered a mentorship scheme, and unfortunately I didn't get through, but they identified my writing as quite promising, and they sent some lovely feedback on that. So by the time lockdown happened and my writing group moved online, I was all up for uploading stuff online rather than reading them out. I mean, some people are nervous about it, but I'm not. I don't think I'm not. I've sort of gained confidence in that area over a few years. So yeah, apart from that, I'm actually a key worker, so I've actually worked non-stop during lockdown. So yeah, and I'm quite proud of it actually, being a key worker, because yeah, I'm a big believer of giving credit where it's due, and people like what you're calling key workers now, they just weren't getting the credit they deserved. Really. So yeah, it's like I said, I'm giving credit where it's due, and yeah, I've worked all the way through this pandemic. I had a day off, and I'm out there risking my life. And yeah.
Have you had your vaccination yet?
My mother has that at least, and I have a friend who's clinically vulnerable who's had hers last week. So yeah, we're getting there.
Getting there slowly. Light at the end of the tunnel's getting ever closer, isn't it?
It is, hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm an advocate and sort of working with social inclusion and supporting people to engage with health services. So I have also been working all the way through, and I work with a lot of adults with autism in my job, because a lot of what I do is supporting people, particularly to access like GP services, because I find, and it's been one of the things that's been really difficult for a lot of the people I've worked with who have got autism diagnoses, is sort of the changes in, there's been some very big, very sudden changes in how we access services and how we live our daily lives because of the pandemic. And so I think that particularly people who have got sort of neurodiversity have needed that extra support to get through the pandemic, to be able to, continue to be mentally as well as physically kind of well and empowered. And I think that that's been something that's been recognized as even more important because of the pandemic. The value of providing a little bit of extra support and being a little bit more flexible with how we promote and access services.
I kind of want to say, Alice, that as I've said before, you have been my total support and reason to keep going throughout this whole pandemic, because every time I felt a little bit like I'm really fed up, all I want to do today is cry, which I do a lot of. People will know by now that I cry a lot. But yeah, every time I felt fed up, really, not really wanting to do anything and don't really see the point, Alice has chimed in with, do you want to just do this bit for the podcast? And it's given me something to focus on. So I think you've been a great support to me, and no doubt countless others.
I mean, that's the thing about advocacy, is that it's about empowering other people and, promoting other people to take action for themselves. I'm constantly saying to the clients that I work with, well, why don't you do that? Because, my job is basically is being paid to tell people how to do stuff and then making sure that they do it.
Yes.
Because taking charge of somebody's life for them, providing, even acting like a secretary, you're disempowering a person who may be vulnerable, may have those kind of needs, by not promoting their own voice and their own agency.
Yeah, you definitely have been and I don't know whether you realised you were doing it at all, but it was a great support, really. And I think it's we are, everybody here in this conversation, we are the kind of people that want to encourage others to live the best life possible, and it's something that I'm very proud of, and I know that you are as well, Alice. So
I think it's something that we're trying to achieve with this podcast as well, is giving voices to people, giving people the opportunity to tell their stories and, champion the campaign or the issue that is closest to their heart. And I think it sounds like, that's the thing that is kind of your baby, in the way that our baby is this podcast, Graham. I feel like, your SAS group is the thing that you've really, poured your kind of yourself into. And it sounds like you and others have really reaped the benefit of that.
Graham, is there anything that you want to promote, any projects and things? We always give our guests a space to promote anything that they may be working on, either in the future or currently. So now's your chance to do it, and we can put all the links on our website.
Well, like I said, my projects are on hiatus at the moment, and still a bit in the dark about what the council's going to do for this Autism Awareness Week. But I have contributed to something Writing East Midlands is doing. They're publishing some work written by autistic authors over Zoom, and they're going to be launching that soon, so that's something to keep your eye on.
We can link to that on our website, Graham, so if you send us all the details, we can put it on our website and link through, if you like.
I'll send you a link as soon as I can,
Fabulous.
I said, it's still in the planning stages.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great stuff.
And where can people find you if they want to follow you on social media, or has the SAS got a website that people can visit to sort of see what you're up to?
The SAS has their own website, run by yours truly over the years. Quite a good website from what I've been told. Yeah, if you just Google swaddling code SAS, then it's usually the first thing that comes up. So, SWAD, the website's called SWAD Asbies, which are both nicknames. So,
yeah.
Great stuff. Well, like I said, we'll link all of that on our website, and you can find it in the show notes as well, alongside the transcription for this episode.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram as well. So my Instagram is Mr. Gray Roger, and my blog is called My 50 Shades.
Right.
So, yeah, you got that, didn't you? Yeah. That's
Fantastic.
That's become sort of my official nickname over the years, Mr. Gray. I mean, not that I'm complaining about it. It's probably the best nickname I've ever had, apart from all the terrible nicknames I used to get called, things like that. But,
definitely up there with one of the best.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yes. Yeah. It's if there's one thing about having a condition, it's taught me that not everything is as black and white as it seems. It's like people like to put things as either good or bad, but no, there's this. In my experience, there's this huge grey area in between. It's like that you probably don't even see most of the time. So I think that's why grey is my favourite colour, actually, to be honest with you, because it's it's sort of neutral and mysterious, and most people don't appreciate the grey area. Yeah.
I love that, Graham. That's brilliant. Oh, Graham, it's been really, really nice to talk to you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for your time today, Graham. I hope you've enjoyed your time on the lABLEd podcast.
Thanks for listening to the lABLEd podcast. If you like the show, please rate, review and subscribe. You can follow us on social media at lABLEd podcast.
Our thanks go to our editor Adam Hall, our music composer Maisie Crunden, and our graphic designer Sarah Coley.
We'll see you next time.